Is this the dagger?
G'day guys, JB here. The 20th week of the 25-26 NBA season is in the books, and we are really starting to see some things sharpen up at both ends of the table. We are seeing some teams become a little more competitive than first thought. We're seeing some other teams start to slide, and of course at the top of the table things are just starting to get really interesting when it comes down to the playoffs, particularly when it looks like who's going to win each respective conference. Some big moves in and out that are going to cause some concern, but overall we still have plenty of basketball to play. Still 3 or 4 weeks left in the season. I can't wait to see exactly how it's going to unfold, but let's look back on the week that was. Week 20 of the 25-26 NBA season. The Atlanta Hawks, starting off in the East as always, have absolutely rallied compared to some of the streaks they had been on throughout this season. They have only lost one game since the All-Star break. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of their last 13 on an 11-game winning streak. 4-0 this week. They're now 38-31 overall. They've jumped back up into 8th in the conference, and again, one of the few teams that are in that playing position that really could rattle a few cages if they get on a roll. Jalen Johnson, a triple-double this week, 4 games played, and he has made a few moves up a particular ladder of mine. 21.3 points, 11.3 rebounds, 10.8 assists, 1.3 steals on 3.3 turnovers, 46.6 from the field, 40% from deep, and 70% from the free throw line. These are the Atlanta Hawks that we saw towards the start of the season. They mellowed out a bit, but they have made a big run here on both sides of the ball since the All-Star break, and they are the informed team of the competition. Over to Boston. Speaking of informed teams, they have made a big run themselves since the All-Star break. They have only lost 4 games, but they have been winning left, right, and centre. And a big part of that has been this man on screen, and of course the return of Jason Tatum. This week for Boston, a 3-1 weekly record, 46-23 overall. They are second in the conference, and depending on the health and well-being of other teams in the East, they are still a sneaky chance to finish on top, and form says that they very well could be the team to come out of the Eastern Conference. Jaylen Brown, big week. 30.8 points, 5.8 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 1.5 steals, and 0.5 blocks on 4.5 turnovers. 47.4 from the field, 22.2 from deep, 93.8 from the free throw line. The man continues to stake his claim as an All-NBA first-team member. For me, he has to be in that All-NBA first-team selection. There are some guys that are going to really contest that bubble next to a Gilgeous-Alexander, but I think Jaylen Brown has to be one of them. The team that isn't going to be one of them is the Brooklyn Nets. Didn't win a game this week, and they have only won 2 games since the All-Star break. 17-52 overall. They are 13th in the conference. Our man right there on screen, Tyson Etienne. Well, he was their best player this week. 10.3 points, 2.5 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 0.5 steals, and a turnover. And shooting split shouldn't shock you as to where the Nets are at. 34.5 from the field, 37% from deep, 91.7 from the free throw line. The Charlotte Hornets, they have had a really big run since the All-Star break. Had a couple of losses there, but they've been on a few winning streaks here or there. Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball consistently their best players through this period. LaMelo in their 2-game span this week, 23.5 points, 5 rebounds, 7.5 assists, 2 steals, and half a block on 3 turnovers. 48.6 from the field, 36.4 from deep, and 71.4 from the free throw line. Only the 2 games for Charlotte, but they are above 500 and a 10th in the conference. There has been a real swing in the back end of both conferences since the All-Star break. You had to be well and truly above 500 to be getting into the top 8 of the Western Conference, and now all of a sudden the 8th seed is below 500 compared to the East now, where you have to be at minimum 500 to even be in the play-in tournament. So things starting to shake up a little bit more in the East. I don't think they're in the same form as an Atlanta, and they did have a nice run earlier in the year. But right now, Charlotte above 500, they are out kicking their coverage. The Chicago Bulls, on the other hand, wouldn't be able to knock in a penalty kick on a soccer field without a goalie. That is the level of form they're in right now. A 1-3 weekly record. They're 28-41 overall, 12th in the conference. Season is done. Let's be real, they are not competing anytime soon. They're certainly not worrying about the top of the Eastern Conference, let alone the play-in tournament. Josh Giddey, 4 games this week, had a couple of triple-doubles, 18 points, 8.5 rebounds, 10.3 assists, 2 steals, 0.3 blocks and 3.3 turnovers, 45.2 from the field, 39.4 from deep, 60% from the free throw line. Chicago just need to pack it up and worry about next year. A team that doesn't need to pack it up and worry about next year, in fact, they've got enough of a form line to suggest they need to worry about the now. That is the Cleveland Cavaliers, a 2-1 weekly record, 42-27 overall. They're now up to 4th in the Eastern Conference, and Evan Mobley showing us flashbacks to what I deem to be a top 10 season last year. 24.7 points, 11 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 0.3 steals, and 2.3 blocks on 2 turnovers. This guy's going to be back in contention for all defensive honours after a slow start. 64% from the field, 22% from deep, and 41.7 from the free throw line. Their form hasn't been as great as other teams, but keeping it consistent. They have only lost 6 games since the All-Star break. They are winning more than they are losing, but their form line hasn't been as great as I think they thought it was going to be. They had a bit of form going into All-Star week and coming out of it there, but just in general, just tailing off a little bit. I think that's a little bit of a concern, unless they can pick it up in these next few weeks and just set themselves ready for the postseason. To Detroit, they have set themselves up very, very well. 3-1 weekly record, 49-19. Not only are they a 40 before 20, but they're a chance to be a 50 before 20 team, and that really puts you up in contention. Jalen Duren has been huge for them. Back-to-back weeks premier as their player of the game. 25 points, 11.3 rebounds, an assist, 0.3 steals and a block on 1.3 turnovers through the 4 games. I know the assist numbers aren't necessarily there, but the defensive pressure is, and let's be honest, he is as efficient as any big in the league right now. I was about to say 25%. I've got that confused with the shooting. 78% from the field. He's converting at 8 out of 10. I can't be mad at the minimum possessions that he does convert on. 71% from the free throw line, doesn't attempt a 3. Big story, though, coming out of the week. Cade Cunningham diagnosed with a collapsed lung, and that's going to be very, very interesting for Detroit moving forward. Their lead point guard is out. There are some teams hot on their heels. I don't know whether they've got enough of clearance there in the East, but you would think the precaution with Cade may see him out for close to the rest of the regular season. Then you've got the Indiana Pacers, who have been out of the regular season since about week 3 of the season. I thought this was a team that might have enough pieces to make a playoff run. That didn't end well. 5 games this week, didn't win a game, and they haven't won a game since at least the All-Star break. A lot of losses in that column for them this season at 15-55. Jerice Walker, their best player in the 5 games played. 14 points, 7 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 0.6 steals and 0.4 blocks on 1.6 turnovers, 43.9 from the field, 38.5 from deep, and 66.7 from the free throw line. I tell you what, the bounce back on this, if Tyrese Halliburton's able to pull it off, would be one of the biggest turnarounds in record in league history if it happens next season. Over to the Miami Heat, who have strung together some wins since the All-Star break. They've had a really nice run. But a 1-2 weekly record now. They are tied for 7th with the Atlanta Hawks at 38-31. And they are a team that will want to try and crack that top 6, but I don't know how they're going to be able to do that with Toronto and Orlando really running as well as they are. Pelu Larson, their best player this week, 3 games played, 19 points, 3.7 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal and 2 turnovers, 57.1 from the field, 62.5 from deep and 95.2 from the free throw line. Injuries and inconsistency has hurt the Heat in the back half of the year. They have had a nice bit of a run though. They were able to string, 7 games together before back-to-back losses to end this week. Norman Powell, not with the form that he had at the start of the year. Andrew Wiggins, still contributing here or there, but it's ultimately going to come down to whether Bam Adebayo is in or out of a game. Is it an 83-point difference? Well, I don't know, but he's certainly proving his value to this team. Meanwhile, the Milwaukee Bucks, they are done, and Giannis Antetokounmpo is, back arguing with the front office. The fact that he's still with this team is a miracle when you consider everything that's going on right now. And I like Giannis. I think Giannis is one of the 25 greatest players of all time. I think he's been one of the more consistent two-way players in the league for the last decade. But at the end of the day, it's put up or shut up. At this point, he either needs to get out or keep quiet. Really simple stuff. The Bucks 1-3 this week. They're now 28-40 overall, 11th in the conference. They're, again, not a team that's going to be doing anything this season. Ryan Rollins, their best player in the 4 games that he played. 19.3 points, 3.3 rebounds, 7.3 assists, a steal, and 0.8 blocks on 2 turnovers. 62.2 from the field, 52.2 from deep, and 90% from the free throw line. Then there's the Knicks, who have made a nice run this week. 3-0 record, 45-25 overall, 3rd in the conference, and a team that, if they can take advantage of the potential out of Cade Cunningham, might be able to sneak up a little bit here in the East. The trouble is that Boston aren't getting any worse, and Cleveland certainly are going to keep them in check. But they are still 3rd overall, and OG Anunoby with a great rounded week once again. A guy who has proven time and time again that he can step up into that role. He does present on both sides of the ball. And in the absence of someone performing really well like a Jalen Brunson or Cat not having a great game, he's the perfect 3rd option to have when need be. Not consistently, but when need be. This week for Anunoby, 21.7 points, 6.7 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 0.3 steals on 1.3 turnovers, 60% from the field, 61.5 from deep, and 88.2 from the free throw line. The Knicks have a really good opportunity here if they can time their run well. They are winning enough games. Can they get to 50 wins? You would think they do. That makes things a little more interesting. The Orlando Magic, they are sitting in 6th position. They will want to make a bit of a run here because the Heat are only just behind them. But the way form has been and the consistency of Orlando, for me, over the second half of the year, it's been a lot better than Miami, who have had that little run there. 2-2 week for the Magic, 38-30 overall, 6th in the conference, as I mentioned. Paolo Banchero, their best player this week, but for me, Desmond Bane still proving to be the man right now on this team. For Banchero, 23.8 points, 9.5 rebounds, 5 assists, 0.3 steals, and 0.5 blocks on 3.3 turnovers. Not necessarily great from the field at 44.3. 38.5 makes up for that a bit. 78.3 from the free throw line. Again, I'd like to see that at 8 out of 10 consistently. I suppose the question is going to be who's able to step up with more consistency when Banchero has an off night or Bane is having an off night. We need Wagner to do it, but again, he's been managing injuries. A lot of this Magic team have been managing injuries throughout the year, so they're going to have to find a spark somewhere along the line, but they are in danger of not only hitting that play-in tournament, but not being in form against some of these teams that are in the play-in tournament. Over to Philadelphia, they have fallen into the play-in tournament. They are 37-22. And it sort of speaks about how close things are between 7, 8, and 9. I mean, 38-31 gets you 7th. 37-32, you know, you switch one of those losses around to a win, and you've got a 3-way tie there for 7th position. Philly are without Tyrese Maxey. They have been without Joel Embiid as well. I think he's played 5 games in the last 7 weeks, which is unfortunate for him. And, of course, Paul George out with a suspension. 9th in the conference are the 76ers. And they could be in danger of going from an all-time elite run and potentially making some noise as a 6th seed to, well, we're out before the playoffs even begin. Quentin Grimes, again, their best player this week, and he's been one of the better reserves in the league this season, as I've mentioned. 21.3 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.3 steals, and 0.5 blocks on 2 turnovers. 44.3% from the field, 17.4 from deep, and 82.6 from the free throw line. The Sixers, they're doing okay. They just don't need to slip to 500. Over to the Raptors, who recovered nicely after a couple of hit-and-miss weeks to go undefeated this week. It's their best result since the All-Star game. 39-29 overall, 5th in the conference, and with a bit of form, they should be able to secure themselves a top 6 finish. It will see them play road teams all throughout the playoffs, no matter when they play, but it'd be a good result for a team that I thought would be a play-in tournament team, or at the very worst, you know, scraping that 11th, 12th seed there. Really nice work, Brandon Ingram, this week. Good complimentary piece. He's been inconsistent over the last few weeks. He himself has admitted that, but had a really nice week here. 29.3 points, 4.3 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 0.3 steals, and 2.3 turnovers on that there. Efficient shooting, which has been really handy for him as well. 59.6 from the field, 62.5 from deep, and 80% from the free throw line. One of the other guys that's been really good this week for them, RJ Barrett, who's had a reasonably quiet year comparative to last year, but if he himself quickly and Scotty Barnes can get on the same page, they're not necessarily a team I would want to be facing in the first round if they're in form. And finally, we go over to the Wizards, who themselves are nearly 40 games below 500. Didn't win again this week. They're 14th in the conference. Will Riley, the best player, again in the 4 games that he played. 13.8 points, 4.3 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 0.5 steals, and 0.3 blocks on 1.5 turnovers. 42.9 from the field, 35% from deep, 70.6 from the free throw line. The Wizards are an absolute rabble. Dallas are done for the year, but it was good to see Cooper Flagg back doing what he does best for the Mavericks this week. A 2-3 weekly record there, 23 and 47 overall, 13th in the conference, and Flagg, who I do feel probably will lose out to Con Knippelin Rookie of the Year. If he wins it, I'm not shocked. If he loses, I'm not shocked. It's just the fall away he's had, and injuries haven't helped. Nice week from the rookie, 20.6 points, 5.8 rebounds, 7 assists, 0.8 steals, and 1.2 blocks a game on 3.4 turnovers. 47.1 from the field, 13.3 from deep, and 80.8 from the free throw line. Over to the Denver Nuggets, who are currently sitting 42 and 28 overall. They are 6th in the conference. A couple of games here or there squeeze them back up towards the 3rd seed, but again, I just don't think we've got enough on our plate here for Denver to be winning a title. They're a team that's going to, in a year where we've got teams winning a high number of games, they're going to lose 30 before they win 50. Let alone be a team that wasn't 40 and 10 or potentially 40 before 20, let alone 50 before 20. I flagged it before. Jokic had a really good defensive week this week, but I don't think you're going to win a title with him as your best defender. And he was good offensively in the 4 games he played. 23 points, 14.3 rebounds, and 12.3 assists. 54.8 shooting there, 35.8 from deep, and 85.7 from the free throw line. But he is turning the ball over a fair bit as well. I don't think he's reading the game exactly how he was earlier in the year. The team itself isn't performing. I don't think Denver can win the title. I think they can sneak a 3rd seed, but I don't think they can win the title. Here's a team that I don't think that can win the title, and a team that is going to be really concerned with potentially falling out of the playoff tournament, considering Steph Curry is still out of this team. A 1-3 weekly record for the Golden State Warriors, moving them to 33 and 36 overall. And it's Guy Santos, again, their best player this week. And I've got nothing against him. I've got nothing against Bajemski. But when you're seeing these guys as the best player on the team, there's a lot of injuries with Golden State. They had it was close to $150 million in salary sitting on the bench the other day with injuries or unable to play. That screams of a team that's in a lot of trouble. But again, you do have to adapt and overcome that, and I don't necessarily think that Golden State have had the great management of rosters that they've needed. Great to see Porzingis having good games. Good to see Al Horford contributing, but they still need Steph Curry, and they need someone next to Steph Curry realistically at this point to be able to make a splash. For Santos this week, 17 points, 4.8 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, and 2.5 turnovers. 41% from the field, 57.3 from deep, and 100% from the free throw line. To the Houston Rockets, a 1-2 record for them this week. It's been interesting for them. They have been hot and cold the last 3 weeks. Win-loss, 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 win, loss, loss. They haven't strung more than 1 win together since the first week after the All-Star break when they went 3 in a row. They're a team that's on a chance. They're a chance to lose 30 before they win 50. Which would definitely rule them out of a title race. And with the way the form is going at the very top of the table there, with the Spurs, with the Thunder, you could be looking at a 2nd round exit team, especially if they run, and the concern there is if they run into a red hot lower seed, they could be a 1st round bounce as well. And they've had some really good production this year from Kevin Durant. Again, they are the 5th seed in the conference. Armin Thompson has been great, but again, form just not hitting at the right time for the Rockets. Thompson this week, 22.7 points, 11.7 rebounds, 5.7 assists, a steal and 0.3 blocks on 2.7 turnovers. He is the best 2-way player for the Houston Rockets, there's no doubt about it. 54.9 from the field, 33.3 from deep, 77.8 from the free throw line. Yeah, bit of a concern for Houston, who aren't stringing any form together anytime soon. Over to the Clippers, who have realistically had their worst week since coming out of the All-Star break. They have had 3 losses in a row, and they haven't had that in, looks like about 3 weeks there. They'd previously won 7 of their last 8. Kawhi Leonard in some form, but the Clippers right now just falling out a little bit. They are below 500 now. They are still the 8th seed, and I wouldn't be surprised though to see them, try and bounce a couple of games back. They will be wary. particularly if Portland are starting to make a bit of a run towards 500 once again. A team that was a sneaky chance of being where the Clippers are earlier in the year before some injuries took a toll on them towards the All-Star break. Jordan Miller, their best player this week, as I said, 1-3 weekly record, 34 and 35 overall, 8th in the conference. 13.8 points, 3.8 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 1 steal and 0.3 blocks on a turnover. He's been one of their key contributors throughout the season. 62.5 from the field, 50% from deep, 60% from the free throw line. Again, when you've got a team that's starting to hit you hot on the heels after they made a run at 500, you do just need to pick up the pace a little bit. But a team that has picked up the pace a fair bit, they have had, in their last 2 weeks, they have won 7 of their last 8. They have won 10 of their last 11 and bounced back really well after a three-game loss not long after the All-Star break. Part of that has been Luka Doncic, who has been phenomenal and for me has really reasserted himself back into the top 5 conversation of the MVP this year. Again, I judge this on totality. I'm not worried about the back end of the season. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for me still sits clear ahead in MVP conversations, but I think Luka's doing enough to potentially work himself into that well, certainly the top 5, but he could make a run as the second option for MVP this year if he keeps it up. Huge week for him, massive week, the best week he's had as a Laker. 39.3 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists, 1.8 steals, and a block on 4 turnovers. 48.6 from the field, 42.1 from deep. That's the kind of efficiency Luka needs to have from a shooting standpoint. 73% from the free throw line. I mean, to consider his leaving points on the table to not average 40 over the last couple of weeks is a scary thought. The Lakers, they're back gelling LeBron, moving to a third option there behind Luka and Reeves. We'll see what they can do. It is still a logjam between 3rd and 6th. The Grizzlies, as we know, are done. 1-3 weekly record, 24 and 44 overall, so officially 20 games back, 11th in the conference, and that's a concern considering 10th is only 3 games back. So we have all but locked in the rest of the season for the Western Conference. Taylor Hendricks, their best player this week, and he had a really nice defensive week as well. A young guy that has been plugging away. But again, there's really no direction right now in Memphis, which is crazy to think that they had sacked a coach that had them towards 500 and they've got rid of everyone but the guy who appears to continuously be the problem there in Memphis. 13.3 points, 5 rebounds, 0.8 assists, 2.8 steals, and a block on 2 turnovers. 44.7 from the field, 25% from deep, and 71.4 from the free throw line for the week for Hendricks. The Minnesota Timberwolves, they will have a concern right now with Anthony Edwards going out with an ankle injury, expected to be re-evaluated over the coming weeks, which is a bit of a concern when you consider many thought it was only a sprain. But Julius Randle has picked up the slack and still managed to get Minnesota a 3-1 record this week, 43 and 27 overall. Again, a part of that big log jam between 3rd and 6th. It's actually starting to reach a point. I thought maybe a crazy run to the conference finals was a chance there for Minnesota. I thought Denver might be able to recover, and the Lakers are making a run, but I am just concerned right now that Minnesota are done as far as a playoff or a genuine championship contender or even making an unlikely run. Houston, they're out of form at the wrong time of the year, and Denver, again, another team out of form at the wrong time of the year. It could very well be very much a top 3 of the conference making that contest. And I think the Lakers would still be making up the numbers there as well. But nonetheless, let's look at things here for Randle. In the 4 games he played this week, 23.8 points, 4.8 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 2 steals and 0.3 blocks on 3.3 turnovers. But the efficient rate at which he's scoring is exactly what Minnesota need. 58.9 from the field and 50% from deep. He's been a great second, third option for most of his career. Randle tried it as the number 1 in New York. It just didn't pan out. But he produces this as the second and third option almost everywhere that he goes. 82.1 from the free throw line. Again, Minnesota, I just think are going to run out of form at the wrong time right now, just with how things are falling apart in the West. Teams that for some reason are starting to hit a little bit of form for no apparent reason. The New Orleans Pelicans, 2-1 this week, 24 and 46 overall. And Zion Williamson, their best player for the 12th seed in the West. 3 games played, 20.7 points, 4.3 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 0.3 steals and 1 block on 1.7 turnovers. 77.4 from the field, didn't attempt a 3, and 70% from the free throw line. Yeah, dunno. New Orleans didn't do anything all year. Apparently Zion was meant to be his healthiest. He's apparently back on his diet concerns. And the Pelicans are 22 games below 500. That about summarises it for New Orleans this season. Tell you what does summarise a lot of the Western Conference though, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. 4-0 this week. They're now 55-15. They are not only 50 before 20, they're a chance to be 60 before 20. I said at the start of the year I thought they were a 65-win team. At one point I thought they were going to break the all-time wins record, but there's still no reason for them not to be a 65-game pace. Through 70 games, they need to go 10-2 to end the season to do that. It is a chance they are in form. Watch me jinx it moving into the next week. But they're a 60-win before 20-loss team. That's a genuine championship contender right there. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for me, the MVP of the league, continues to be epically efficient and adding strings to his bow as we go. He has a chance, as I said, to join LeBron and Jordan. That's the kind of club that he's looking to join, and that is back-to-back league and finals MVPs. Shea this week, 28.8 points, 4.3 rebounds, 6.8 assists, 2.8 steals and a block on 2 turnovers. That's right, 29, 4 and 7, 3 and 1 on 2 turnovers, and keeping it efficient from the field, 55.3 from the field, 50% from deep, 82.8 from the free throw line. Saw a stat today that his finishing numbers at the rim right now are rivaling that of Giannis. He's doing this as a 2-guard. For me, the MVP of the league. Over to the Phoenix Suns, who had a bit of a rough week, but they have probably been, outside of your real top seeds in the conferences, the most consistent team all year, because I can't recall a time they haven't been the 7th seed in the Western Conference. They're one of the few teams I'm very confident will get out of the play-in tournament with no problems, and that when they reach the, start of the playoffs, unfortunately going to run into a 1 seed, but they have been a really nice team all throughout the season. They've just come off 4 straight wins to finish with 3 straight losses. Devin Booker, though, continues to be their best player. 39 and 30 overall in the 7th seed for the Suns. Again, only the 1 win this week, but Devin Booker, huge. 37 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 0.3 steals and 0.8 blocks on 4 turnovers, 49% from the field, 34.6 from deep and 86.7 from the free throw line. Couple of injuries here or there. Dylan Brooks being out probably has hurt their chances to make a bit more of a run towards the top 6 of the conference, but they are still plugging away. Jalen Green with a really nice return, albeit inefficient Jalen Green, but at least it's something for Booker to work with. They do need Brooks back to solidify their defense, in my opinion, but this is a team that has been as consistent as anyone this year. It's just that they've been a mid-level team. The Portland Trailblazers, they are making another run, as I alluded to a 500 record and wanting to make their case towards the 8th seed. The Warriors should be worried because I think the Blazers are going to have health on their side to get it done. The Clippers, they just need to find some consistent form where they can. A bit of a down week, we'll judge them in 10 days or so. But for the Blazers, they are making that run once again. A 3-1 weekly record, back up to 34 and 36, 9th in the conference. And Denny Avdia, who to me has consistently been their best player this year, was really creeping into my top 10 MVP conversations earlier in the year. He is back playing and has had a really nice week. 23 points, 7.3 rebounds, 6.8 assists, 1 steal and 1 block, 5.5 turnovers, adding to concerns with efficiency from shooting. Not ideal, and that's the one thing that will cost a lot of teams in the postseason, where stars have their inefficiencies despite putting up numbers, and that's what costs them series. Avdia, 43.5 from the field, 16.7 from deep and 81% from the free throw line. I think there's still plenty to offer there for Portland, and I think they can sneak into the postseason if they can keep form. It's the teams around them that should just be concerned if they do hit things at the right time. But the Kings, they're not going to hit anything at the right time. A 2-1 weekly record this week. They're 18 and 52. They're 15th in the conference. They're one of the worst teams in the NBA. Pretty much the only team that is worse than them is the Indiana Pacers. And I can't think of a reason why Sacramento should be anywhere near as bad as Indiana. DeRozan, 3 games played this week, 23.3 points, 1.7 rebounds, 6.3 assists, 1.3 steals on 3 turnovers, 59% from the field, 25% from deep, and 88.5 from the free throw line. On the other side of that, you've got someone like the Spurs, who are absolutely tearing the conference apart. They're a team that are 50 before 20 as well. So we're talking about genuine contender right now. They are young and they are inexperienced in the postseason. That might be the only thing that does hold against them. But a 3-1 weekly record, 2nd in the conference, Wemby would have been player of the week if he had played all of their games, but he did miss one. But Stephon Castle continues to be one of the great additions to the Spurs. He did win Rookie of the Year last year. I think people forget that. But he has been massive for the Spurs. 4 games played this week, 17.8 points, 6.5 rebounds, 10 assists, so he can play that more traditional point guard role. He is still a very good defender, 0.5 steals, 0.3 blocks, not reflecting the stoppages that he really creates on the floor, to go with 2.8 turnovers. 42.3 from the field, not ideal, but makes it up at 43.8 from deep, 87% from the free throw line. The Spurs are serious. The Spurs should be the second favourite for the title. They are really making a run. Again, it's only a lack of experience that's really going to prove the difference for them this season. And to no difference for the Spurs would be the Utah Jazz, who are on a 4-game losing streak, which since the All-Star break is only their second longest, after they lost 6 straight coming out of the break in February. 0-3 record, 20-49 overall, 14th in the conference, and they are looking to reload next season. Bryce Sensabaugh, their best player this week, in a very surprising week for anyone in Utah, let alone anyone around the league. Sensabaugh averaged 31.3 points, 3.3 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 1.3 steals on 0.3 blocks with 3.3 turnovers. 56.7 from the field, 50% from deep, 71.4 from the free throw line. If he did this in any other team, it might make some news. At the end of the day, he's stuck in Utah. And that's my review, guys. We're 20 weeks into the season. It has absolutely flown. Some really standout performances this week, sometimes in teams that didn't perform so well. Then you've got some guys at the right top end of the table, your Luka Doncic's, your Shai Gilgeous-Alexanders, who are really turning it up. Jaylen Brown as well. And they are really starting to stamp their case for why they are going to be one of the leading contending teams in each respective conference, let alone leading contending players for All-NBA selection and MVP selection. What did you think of the week? How do you think everything's starting to stack up in the Eastern Conference, particularly in the back end where everyone's going to have to be 500? Top end, obviously an absolute jumble. Injuries might play a factor. In the West, the 3rd through 6th seeding is going to be absolutely contentious. I still think 1 and 2 are clear cut. It is going to be 3 through 6 that causes an absolute nightmare for the league. Anyway, guys, that's been me. That's been my review for week 20 of the 25-26 NBA season. I'm out.